Hey everybody, welcome back to 12 Days of Christmas. On today's project, we have the Retreat Bag by Emmaline Bags. This is a free pattern on Emmaline Bags' website. It's linked below in the description box, so check there. I did the size small. I did single tone cork, and then on the inside I used waxed cotton. It's kind of hard to tell because it's nighttime here, but I did a pretty lagoon color, and then I have this fun it's a lighter teal, kind of like a bright mint color zipper. Waywack has zipper by the yard now, so that's what this zipper tape is. It works. I do like it. My opinion is that it's a little bit cheaper than, you know, your zipper by the yard from Lauren at Mormino or Alex at Zipper Valley. So just something to keep in mind. But it is really cost effective and it's quality, but it's not as nice as those other companies. And I did zipper end caps to stop both ends of my zipper. And then this cork is Golden Slate Waves from Fabric Funhouse. Both the wax cotton and the cork are from there. So again, all of the info will be linked in the description box below, so check down there. I used Gutermann Mara 120. I used a size 16 needle, and I sewed on my Juki TL 2010Q. Enjoy. I have all of my pattern pieces cut and ready to go for the size small of the retreat bag. So I have 2 exteriors. I have gone ahead and added my brand. And if you are interested in doing that, I did mine 3 inches from the top there. I have my 2 linings. I'm using waxed cotton. I have my 16-inch zipper, and I will be using zipper end caps to finish my zipper off. And then I have my zipper pull. And so the first thing that I want to do before I go any farther is I want to talk about the linings. So when the bag is completed, I want the lining to nest inside the exterior nicely. I do not want it to be bulgy. I don't want there to be excess. It's just one of my pet peeves when it comes to bag making. I just can't stand a saggy lining. I don't need the lining taking up the space inside of my bag. So I like to taper my linings prior to sewing to avoid that. So what I'm going to do is, I've already done it. When I cut these out, you'll see here comparing, I cut it 1/4 inch shorter than my exterior, but I kept it the same width because when we're adding the zipper, we want our sides to meet up. So I kept it the same width, but I took 1/4 inch off of the height. And then another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start at this top corner here, and I'm going to taper it in about 1/2 inch toward the bottom. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a bevel. And what the bevel will do is once the bag is sewn together, when we have our exteriors and we're sewing at 1/4 inch seam allowance straight, this is going to be a straight side seam. And then because these are going at an angle, they're going to angle in on the inside. So it's just going to create a nice little taper when the bag is completed, and it'll allow it to just sit nicer. And if you've never done this, I do this to every single pattern that I make. I always cut my linings a tad tighter than the pattern outlines just to ensure that everything sits well. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prep my zipper here. So I have my zipper tape and I have my 2 end caps. I have my screws and I have a screwdriver. And then for this step, I'm going to be using double stick tape. I got this double stick tape from the Sewing Room in Garner, North Carolina. You can buy it online. I like this double stick tape a lot because you can rip it really easily. You don't have to use scissors. So when you're in the middle of doing prep work, you don't have to worry about gumming up your scissors with your tape. But first, we need to add our pull. And so I just started taking my zipper tape apart like that. And I'm going to feed the bottom, so the zipper tape that's closest to me, the side that's closest to me, I'm going to feed it toward the bottom of the pull. Start like that, and then I like to keep my finger right here at the bottom just to make sure that the pull doesn't come off. And then I take a little bit more apart of the zipper tape and feed it into the other open side of the pull. At this point, I like to lay it down on the table so that I have a nice flat surface But what you'll see happen is this creates a bubble in through here. And what I'm going to do is carefully slide the zipper tape and pull that bubble out, but being careful to keep the zipper pull in place, and then slide it on. And then if there's still a little bit of a bubble there, which you can see it's kind of wonky, I'm just going to pull it all the way to the end and not pull it off. What that's going to do is it'll just release that bubble. Alrighty, so now I need to add my tape. So look how easy it is to rip this tape. So here it is. It just rips right off. Regular zipper or regular double stick tape does not do that. It's a lot more challenging. So I just lay it on the wrong side of the zipper tape, peel, and then I'm going to fold this zipper tape into thirds onto itself, like so, and slide an end cap on. You want to slide it until it goes all the way to the back end, until it's hitting this section. If you want to, you can add some glue in there. That's totally up to you. And then I'm just going to repeat that process on this side. Now I want to make sure that my zipper tape is nice and even. And it might not be even on the ends here, but even whereas there's no bubbles in the zipper tape in through here. Okay, so I have my tape on there. Now I'm just going to peel it and then repeat the process of folding it into thirds. This side is a little bit wonkier because it's the two pieces are, the two sides of the tape are pulled apart, so it's a little bit more of a challenge. But with practice, you get really good at this process. Okay, so once we have both end caps on, it should look like this on the back. And now we just need to put screws in those little holes. And if you want to, you can put a dab of crazy glue, super glue in the hole before you screw this in. Or you can use Beacon Fabri-Tac glue, whatever you want to. If anything, I find that when the screw is fully screwed in, you have to really, really, really tug on it to pull it off. So I don't really think that it's necessary, but you do you. Okay, so there is our zipper all done. Next up is we need to create our zipper sandwich. And what I'm going to do first is find the centers of everything, just to be sure that everything is correct when I start laying everything out. So I'm just going to fold this in half. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to nip this little section here. And then what that does is it just makes it super easy to find the center points. Because this is waxed cotton, I don't really need to cut into this. I can just mark it like that, and you can see it creates a line. And then this, I will just take a little teeny tiny piece off. Okay, so now I've had the centers of all of my pieces. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take double stick tape. You could also use, oh wait, I need to make marks real quick. But you could also use glue for the next step. So the retreat bag has a zipper that is not sewn all the way to the end. So we need to make marks so that we know where to start and stop our stitching and where we need to pull our zipper out of the way, out of the seam, which I'll get into that more in a little bit. But I am going to make marks 1.25 inches from each side. And I'm going to do that on both my lining and my exterior, just so everything is the same. And so now that I have those lines, I know, that was a total brain fart. Anyways, I'm going to line this I'm using 1/8 inch double stick tape now, and I'm just going to put a thin, not a thin, but I'm just going to put it across the top here. And then peel. And then now with my zipper tape right side down and with my pull on my left side, because this is going to be the front of my bag, I always like my pulls to, I like my bags to open from the left side. So I'm putting the pull on the left side. You can, you know, do whatever you'd like. But I'm just going to line up those center lines. And then when I get to that little 1.25 inch mark right here, I'm going to pull it down. I'm going to make sure that my zipper tape does not stick to that. And if you need to, you can pin or clip it out of the way. And once we tape the lining, it'll be held out of the way by the tape. Okay, so find that 1.25 inch mark, pull it out of the way, clip it. So this is what it should look like now. And I'm just going to add another little bit of tape here so I can stick my lining onto the zipper tape to create that zipper sandwich. Okay, so find that center mark. And then now, because the exterior and the lining are stuck together and the zipper is still pulled out of the way, you should not have to worry about the zipper tape ending up back in that seam before you stitch it, but you can just keep it clipped just to be sure. And now I'm going to move over to the machine and I'm going to stitch across this entire top area. And I'm going to be sure to add some back stitches here at the 1.25 inch mark, because that'll be a stress point when the bag is completed later on. So I want to just add some additional security stitches there. Now for this, if you want to, you can start your stitching here in the center and work your way toward each outer edge. If you find it easier to keep your hands on the zipper, just to make sure that it doesn't shift. So I'll show you how I do that. I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. So when I'm starting to get close to my 1.25 inch mark, I'm going to start adding those back stitches for that added security. And then what I did was I kept my hand on the zipper tape over here just to ensure that it didn't get caught in that stitch line. And then now what you do is you can flip it and you'll stitch starting from that center area down and repeat the process over on this end. And this is what you should have, just one stitch line. And we're not going to top stitch it. I'll meet you back over at the cutting table. So we do need to get this folded out of the way because we need to work with this other side of the zipper tape. But like I said, at the machine, we're not top stitching. We will do that later in the process. So I'm just going to put a couple of my clips here just to keep it out of the way. And I'm going to repeat the entire process with my remaining lining and exterior. So mark your 1.25 inch lines. We also need to mark our centers. Do this one. Okay, I'm going to use my double stick tape. Again, if you need to use glue here, that is not a problem. Create that sandwich. Sorry if the back of my head is in the video. It's really hard to see what I'm doing if I'm not leaned down. Okay, repeat on this side here. All right, now we just need to add another little bit of tape here on top of the zipper tape. Oh, it's all twisted. There we go. Oh, peeled all the tape off. Try peeling it from this side. Okay, so now we're just going to go stitch across the top here just like we did on the other side. All right, so now we need to fold our linings together and our exteriors together, and we're gonna start clipping. So I'm gonna start clipping at my side seams here because I want them to meet up nicely. So I'm gonna clip those into place first. And I'm clipping everything toward my lining. And you have to be sure that you are tucking your zipper out of the way. So I tucked that into the bag. Oh, I forgot. Very important. We need to unzip a little bit. So before you clip more, make sure you unzip your zipper so that you can get into it after we stitch this up. Okay, so tuck your zipper out of the way and then line up your side seams here. This is what it should look like. Now, because the zipper is involved, it's going to be a little bit wonky. That is okay. Just do the best that you can. Clip your exteriors together, doing the best that you can to line it up, but not shifting it. Or when you're shifting it to make it lay nicely, you want to be sure that you're not creating a pooch that will go up here toward the seam, because what's going to happen is you're going to create a fold, and that's not good. So if there's any shifting that needs to happen, you need to apply pressure from this seam area here down and let the excess go toward the bottom, because we will stitch that up and you won't even know. And I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know. I'll try to explain it a little better. But it's kind of a thing, you feel it. You could see it happening when you're trying to make your edges line up nicely. But the important part is I want my side seams to line up nicely. Okay, so I'm just going to do the same process over here with my lining. And because it's wax canvas, I don't have to put too many clips because it's nice and stiff already. Which you might have noticed, I didn't use any interfacing on my cork and no interfacing on my wax canvas. So this is going to be structured just, it will be structured just by the weight of the two textiles. Okay, so now before we go back to the sewing machine, we need to cut out our corners here. So the pattern calls for 2" by 2" squares. And I'm going to do that on my exterior. So 2" by 2". Repeat on this side. But now, when I cut my linings, because I want them to nest nicely, I'm not going to cut them a full 2" by 2". I'm going to cut them 1.75 inches by 1.75. And what that's going to do is it's going to make the boxed bottom on the lining a little bit smaller than the boxed bottom on the exterior, which is just going to make it, again, nest nicer at the end. So this is what it should look like now. And what we have to do is we have to go and stitch. We'll start at the lining and we're going to stitch up and over, and then we're going to pull our two edges together and continue stitching all the way around here. And then we're gonna leave a birthing hole here on the lining. Now, one of my favorite tricks to get a nice bottom flipped edge at the next step, once we flip the bag right side out, is to sew little L's into the fabric. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start sewing here on the lining, but I'm gonna sew down like that, and then I'll start sewing across here. And this, I will backstitch really well on this little L shape. And what that'll do is on the next step, whenever I'm flipping and I need to get a nice turned edge here along the lining, that little L is gonna create a little lip that I can pull against, and you'll see it just folds together. It comes together really nicely when you create that little L. And then if you haven't seen this method, you're gonna stitch all the way up to the end of the box bottom, backstitch a couple, lift your presser foot and shift your work toward you, and you're gonna grab this other end down here of the lining and push it until it meets up and start stitching, just like you normally would. And just keep going. It's gonna create this pooch here, but that'll make it really easy to box the bottom edge in the following steps. Now I'm just reaching in here and pushing my zipper tape out of the way. I always like to add a couple stay stitches here across the top seam. And just keep it moving. I'm going to repeat that same process on all 4 boxed bottom edges. This is now what your piece should look like. A mess, really. But you have all these little box bottoms sewn together like so, and you have your birthing hole down here. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna trim my seam allowances a touch on these interiors. And I'm gonna trim this down, not too much on the on the exterior, but just a little bit, so that way it doesn't affect the way the lining lays once it's all flipped. But I don't want to get too close to my stitch line because you don't want to accidentally cut through it. And of course, if you're using a rotary blade, be very, very careful. You can use scissors for this too. There we go. Okay, so now we're gonna reach in to our lining bottom, the birthing hole here. You're gonna reach all the way in, unzip your zipper. And now I'm reaching up here to my exterior. You can see I just put my fingers through those little holes. And you'll see when you do that, it allows these 2 side seams to butt up next to each other perfectly. And then when you pull them flat, I'm going to lay my seams opposite each other, butterfly them. And you could feel the seams. If you push the seams into each other, you'll feel them line up. And then that's how you know that you have a perfect match and you're not going to have crazy bottoms. So you're going to repeat that for all 4 of your box bottom areas. I like to make sure that so this bottom edge seam that I've already clipped is laying this way. So I'm going to repeat that on this side over here. So when I'm laying this butterfly edge down, I'm going to lay it so it's going that way. Otherwise, it's going to be twisted and it'll never lay flat. So pull these out, push until your seams butt up against each other, and then clip. Same thing. So this seam is going that way. So I'm going to make sure that the seam down here is also going that direction. All right, so now we need to go back to the machine and we're going to stitch across all 4 of these box bottoms, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance on all of them. Don't be afraid to manhandle your bag. You are stronger than your bag. All right, this is what we have right now. And we need to pull, or let's trim our seam allowances down, actually. So again, not too short, just enough so that they're all even. Things do have a way of shifting when you're sewing them down. Okay, so now you're gonna reach in through your birthing hole. What I like to do is so my inside hand is right here in these corners. What I like to do is push one of these corners in, follow it by the other one, and you push it right into your hand inside. See, so it's like a sock puppet. But that way you can grab it, manipulate it, and then I'm gonna flip and do the same thing to this side here. And then now you can grab one of those corners and pull it through. Now try to do this as quickly as possible so that the cork doesn't crease. But I'm just reaching in, I'm pushing my corners out. I'm just kind of pulling on the bag to straighten everything up. And then because we were so careful about lining our edges up before we stitched our exteriors together, this is nice and even. And so what I'm doing is I'm just rolling the top lip in between my hands and pushing the zipper tape toward the top. But I'm not tucking the entire thing in yet because I need to close up this birthing hole. I just like to do that, I don't know, it's just habit, I think. Makes it easier to work with in this next step. But okay, so now here we are. We need to push our corners out of our lining. And so you just want to push out, reach in and poke out those points. Do it on both sides. And then now you can start to see where the inside lining is already turning in on itself because we sewed the little L shape. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my seams here and pull on it and see it just tucks the raw edges right inside. And so you can just kind of pinch the folded edges and you see the lining just forms a folded edge on its own because of the L-shaped sewn seam. That's one of my favorite tricks. I have no idea where I picked it up. I don't know if I came up with it. I've been doing it for years and years and years, and it is one of my favorite sewing hacks. But there we go. So now we just need to go back and we need to stitch across and stitch up this bottom birthing hole. And then while we're over there, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna finish tucking the lining in and I'm gonna add my top stitching. So what I'm gonna do is after my lining is done and I get everything tucked in, I'm gonna roll and just make sure that my zipper tape is fully pulled up toward the top and that my edges are nice and straight. And I'm gonna stitch 1/8 from this top cork edge all the way around the bag. And then I'm gonna go 1/2 inch down and do a second line of stitching. And that's gonna create a channel for the frame that we're gonna put in here so that it keeps its cool open frame shape once we're done with the bag. All right, so I'd switched out to a matching thread. And so there it is, all sewn up along the bottom. And so now, finish tucking it into the bag. And when you do this, because I'm using waxed cotton and cork, it traps the air in there, so it's very fluffy. So you just have to slowly push all the air out of the bag. Okay, here we go. So this is what we're left with right now. It's just a standard boxy pouch. And really what's going to change it up is when we add that frame at the top. But so you can see down in here how nice it is. I don't have any saggy bottoms, nothing's pulling, nothing's pooling. It's just a nice lining. And that is what I was going for. All right, so I have gone ahead and removed my extension table. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a couple of my acrylic templates underneath my machine here. And it kind of creates a cylinder arm to a certain degree. It just gives me some space to move the bag underneath my bed while I'm sewing. And like I said before, I'm gonna top stitch 1/8 seam allowance around the whole top edge of my bag. Oh, you know what? I just realized that the inside of my bag is turquoise, so I'm gonna take this beige thread out and put turquoise thread on my bottom. So that way it's not a totally contrasting color on the inside. Okay, here we go. Now we're good to sew. And so what I like to do at this point is when I'm getting ready to sew, I will kind of pull in opposite directions, pulling on my zipper tape and rolling my seams in here to make sure that everything is laying correctly. Oh, my machine did not like that. There we go. Now when I get to a good spot, I will pull all the excess of my bag toward me so that I can sew for a longer period of time, keep the straight stitch going. But you'll find that it creates tension as you sew, because it gets stuck down here. You have to stop and adjust. And so this was the spot that my machine didn't like on the other side, so I just put some back stitches. I'm going to skip right over that really thick seam and continue sewing. All right, so here is my first line of stitching. And now I'm gonna go down about 1/2 inch and create a second line to create that channel. I'm gonna trim these threads real quick, just so that they don't get caught up in my next stitch line. Okay. Now we have our double stitch line here. That's the channel that our frame will go into. And you can see here where I skipped right over this really thick seam. I was able to sew it on the second one here, but I did skip it on this one back here. So this is what we're working with. So this is without the frames in it. You can see I was able to just manipulate it and fold it, but this is basically the end result here. But after you stitch your two channel lines, it will create this triangular bag, which is a very popular style bag. This is great for just a catch-all pouch. But what I really love about the retreat bag is the shape of it and how with the frames, it keeps a rectangular shape at the top. Now, I make my own frames, but you can get frames on the Emmaline Bags website for both her small and the size large. So if you don't feel like making them, you can certainly buy them from Emmaline. They have very quick shipping, super great prices, you know, the whole nine. Wonderful, wonderful company. Highly suggest using them. I'm gonna have to go back to buying frames soon because it's so hard to find these little skinny hangers now. Maybe I'm just not looking at the right stores, but all I can really find are the really thick hangers, and you need the thin hangers to do this easily. But I'll show you that in just a second. What I'm going to do now is look at my cool seam ripper that I got from Hannah Woodworking at Sew Magical Expo. It's so beautiful. I love just the natural wood. She had all sorts of beautiful epoxy and resin and wood and resin together, but I just went for the all wood. But so what I'm going to do, first I'm actually going to burn these threads. So first burn my threads, and then I need to unpick my stitches right here in between these two stitch lines, in between the two top stitches, to create an opening to slide my frames through after I get them made. So I'm just very carefully going to pick out just those threads. Where'd it go? All right, there we go. So now you can see there's an opening for me to stick my frames through after I get them made. Okay, so I'm going to move these out of the way. And so to make the frames, I have two regular wire hangers. And I need to make a mark that is 1.75 inches. And then from that mark, I will measure 9 inches and then one more 1.75 inches. So I'm going to do that on both of my hangers. So there's my first mark. So now I need to mark at 1.75. And then from 1.75, count to 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then another 1.75. Here's my first mark, second mark, all the way down here, third, and then fourth. Repeat that on this hanger here. And then now with some wire cutters, I just have these needle nose pliers that have this wire cutter nipper in there. I'm going to cut on my two first marks. So you can see I still have the second mark and the third mark here. Okay. I'm just going to wrap my sharp edges in some tape just so that it doesn't hurt the bag or me whenever I'm trying to insert them into the channel. All right. We have all 4 of our corners covered. And then now, on those marks that we made, we need to bend our wire frames like so. So 90-degree angle. And you can use your cutting mat if you need help with that to get them straight. This one's not perfect, but it will do. And then you can just straighten it out. If it seems a little wonky or it's a little weird, a little off, you can straighten it out after you get it bent. So I'm going to repeat for the second side. Like so. So now we have our 2 frames here. And what I'm going to do is starting with that opening, I'm going to insert 1. I'm actually going to go to my right because I always find that to be the harder one for me to get in. And this just takes some finessing. Just got to move her around, shift it until it's all the way in and you can't see it anymore in that hole. And so I can feel it. It's all through here. You can see how structured this side is now compared to that one. And then now we're going to repeat with the last side here. Okay, so they're both inserted. For some reason, there we go. It's like, whoa, this seems way off, but. So you're just gonna move it around until it's all nice and equal. And so you see, so it has that nice rectangular shape now, matches the bottom shape. And then you just got to train it you'll pull down right here and you'll feel the 2 hanger ends. They're going to kind of grind on each other for a second, but you got to just work it around or work them in until it starts to lay how you want it to lay. You're going to zip it up. And then just maneuver it and mess with it until it lays exactly how you want it to. Ta-da! Alrighty, Spideys, we made it. We have completed another day of 12 Days of Christmas. I hope that you enjoyed this pattern. Be sure to give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe so that you know when all of my videos are coming out, and leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought of this video, and I will see you back here tomorrow.